up, everybody, and welcome to the Athlete Zone podcast. I'm your host, Kay, along with my co hosts, Jason, Andrew, and Devontae.
First off, I'm glad to be a part of the podcast. My name is Devontae Garrett. I'm from Louisiana. I'm a graduate student at Madonna University over here in Livonia, Michigan. Uh, just a little bit about me. I play receiver, love football. I'm definitely glad to be a part of this podcast. I feel like the NAIA deserve a little bit more notice, a little bit more attention. So just glad to be a part of the show.
Welcome, welcome. So, my question for everyone is, what is your favorite camp experience from college?
Oh, Devontae, you're new. Why don't you go first?
Honestly, I'd say that report, because as a freshman, you go there. For me, I had a chip on my shoulder just not being that much recruited out of high school and just I went to prep school. Prep school didn't work out. Then I finally got noticed by a coach named Coach Robinson over there in Iowa and Graceland. So just that first report day, I got that chip on my shoulder, and it's like, not gonna lie, I came in with the mindset like I'm not gonna be friendly with nobody. I'm just focused on me. I'm just focused on getting after it. But it's like we reported, you got a certain time limit when you're allowed to start training and everything. Our coach had us on the field at 12 o'clock that night because it considered the next day. So just having that experience, I changed my mindset quick. Like, all right, we had a conditioning test out the gate, and this was right then and there. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna be a team player. It's like, so it was pretty fun just that first day, just seeing everybody, seeing the different type of guys that you got on your team, and just interacting with people from different places.
That sounds fun. Um, my junior year, we had a fifth-year senior quarterback, and I was a junior, and we brought in six freshman quarterbacks, and we had a tight group. But with the way it worked, every other day in camp after dinner, we were done to rest, get stuff, and just kind of mingle with our teammates, get to know them. And we had all six of those quarterbacks, and then us two. There was eight of us, and every night we went and played beach volleyball and just hung out and got to know everybody. It was probably the outside of football part that was the most fun I've ever had at a camp, because just getting to know your teammates is more. I mean, we all love to play, that's obvious, but getting to know your teammates is really the best part.
I'll say my favorite camp memory, but probably the Madden tournaments, just because some of the guys we had in there, you get the guys that you came in with in the spring, because I was a transfer, so I came in the spring, and we all start getting to know each other and everything, and then all the freshmen come in, and they're like, "Oh, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that," and it's just it was something for us to do to where we could all bond, all the way from the fifth year guys all the way down to freshmen, that it was something we could all do together as a team bonding type of thing.
Those things get heated.
Real quick.
What's some advice that you would give to freshmen coming in as far as camp?
Uh, this is me from a coach perspective now. Be ready to manage your time. Don't get so caught up in trying to have fun that you forget you're here to play football. But also don't get so caught up in football that you don't get to know your guys. You just gotta be able to balance them both and go in with the mindset of getting to know people, and don't. And this is terrible to say. Don't worry about back home. Worry about you for those 2 or 3 weeks. Get to know the guys that you're going to be with, because if you want to make it as a college football player, you're going to have to lean on your brothers on the field and your coaches, and they're going to become second family, or you're just going to be homesick really quickly. And I learned that my freshman year. I called to go home, and my dad said, "Hey, nope. If you come home now, you probably won't go back. So you're still there." That's my biggest tip.
I'll say some advice I have is kind of piggybacking off what Andrew said, try to focus on what you have, where you are. I got a little homesick when I got to Kansas Wesleyan, and my cornerbacks coach at the time, Coach Javon Conlon, he told me straight up, he was like, you wanted to be here and now you're here. So what's the point of worrying about what's happening back home if you're in the position that you wanted to put yourself in? So just, try to focus, like he said, not to the point where you're not worried about home, but at the same time, focus on, you put yourself in the position to be here. So focus on progressing, since that's what camp is about. But another piece of advice I have is take naps when you get the chance, because your free time is very limited. So if you get a chance to get sleep, get sleep.
I'm gonna just go off of what both of Jason and Andrew said. One of the biggest pieces of advice, or something that one of my coaches told me my freshman year, is I was going through a lot of stuff back home as far as like just losing people, as far as whether they passed away or they didn't. You know, it's tough losing people in both ways. I talked to my coach that recruited me, and I was pretty close with him, and just getting to know him, I was close with him and close knit with him, and he was close to my family. So he knew what was going on with me. So right before I getting ready to hit that gate to get to the practice field, he put me to the side like, "Hey, I know your mom called me and let me know what was going on. I understand you lost some people, but just remember where your feet are, and remember that you're in a better place now, so you could be a better person and be a better man, and whether it be with football or outside of that." And just hearing that is like, at first it's like, you don't, at first as a young kid, you don't want to hear those things at first, because it's like man, I just lost somebody to death, and it's like it's tough. But it's like, to hear that is like, okay, as soon as I hit that gate, it's like, all right, it's go time. And then another thing I say is like they said, mindset. You got to go in with a positive mindset to camp. You got to have that mindset that you won't be denied. You got to be coachable, and you got to be focused on your job, not what everybody else got to do. One of my coaches told me always focus on your 111. We all out there as a team, but if you're not doing your job, then you still going to tear the team down. And then just get as much work in as you can. As a freshman, I kind of took the opportunity. I got switched. I had to do a position change, moving from receiver to DB. So I had to use that as much extra time as I could to focus on a different part of the game. So just focusing on different techniques that I took from our EDDs, and I took that to after practice and just focusing on those things and just kind of piecing everything together. So just like you said, don't focus on things back home as much, and all those extracurriculars about having fun and everything. Just fall camp is a time to perfect your craft. It's like at that time, football is your job. Football is basically your everything. So just focus on it and just perfect it.
Another thing, a lot of guys when you get to camp, they're all gonna be like, "I can't learn the playbook," and get mad about that. But really, take an hour, just an hour a night when it's just you, and focus on your playbook. And even if it's just taking 3 or 4 plays a day, and just knowing that what your job is, then understanding the whole concept. And the last kind of tip I had is to bring plenty of socks, because no, nothing was the same as when my first coach told me. He said, "How many socks did you bring?" I said, "Like the normal amount." And he goes, "You need to change your socks all the time, and then you need to put your feet up and just let them rest at the end of the day." That was a big thing he used to say. It was funny back then.
What's a typical day for camp, like from beginning to end?
So fall camp, and most of the ones I've been similar, kind of like that little 5:30, 5 a.m. wake up, going to meetings, going to a lift, uh, then hit a nice little breakfast before practice. We go to practice. After practice, we have another meeting, special teams meeting, special teams practice, and then nice little team dinner. And then we usually finish around, uh, camp now usually ends around 5 or 6 for me. But the first fall camp I went to as a freshman, it ended around like 8 or 9 o'clock.
With my experience, we would wake up a typical day. You're up around 6:30. You got to be in breakfast by 7. Right after breakfast, we would have install meetings. After your install meeting, you usually have weights. Um, you'd have maybe an hour after weights to get cleaned up if you're lucky. Sometimes it's like 30 minutes if the strength and conditioning coach goes a little long. And then we'd go to a walkthrough, because we'd walk through everything before every practice. So we'd walk through, you get your lunch, have about an hour before practice, get taped up, get ready, then you go to practice. Our coaches were never big on morning practice. They said you're going to play at 1 in the afternoon, so you're going to practice in the hot of the day, be ready for it. Um, After practice, you'd go shower, clean up, have dinner, and then we'd usually have a special teams walkthrough and film at night after dinner. It varied sometimes depending on what part of camp you're in. A lot more special teams as you get towards game day.
Well, from my experience, a typical day, we wake up around like 7, go straight to breakfast, and then out of breakfast, we go to weights. And then after weights, we'd have meetings, position, and then into special teams. till around like 11. Then we go to lunch, and then we'd have, I think it was weights again. After that, I think we had a second lift, and then we were pretty much off until like 7. And around like 7, we would start prepping for night practice, which usually lasted till like 10.
You had some
That's
mean
a long day
coaches.
from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fun at all.
So for me, speaking as a athlete, I ran D1 and D2 track, and I transferred. So what advice do you have for transfers?
Don't get caught comparing where you're at now to where you were, because at the end of the day, you left where you were for a reason. And this is me looking at it from an AI perspective, make where you're at the best it can be. Don't come in with a negative mindset. Be positive and just enjoy that you're in the grind and that you're getting to do what you love to do. I mean, we had a saying my last year at camp, and brand new head coach, he said, "You're just blessed every day. Just know you're blessed. You're getting to do what you love, and just be positive about it." And for transfers, it's hard because you went D1 to D2. I'm sure maybe it wasn't like terribly different, but D1 and D2s have nicer stuff. When you come to NAI, maybe you don't have all that nice stuff, and you're like, "Oh, I made a mistake." Don't get caught in that. Just be happy where you are at and make the best out of it.
It was definitely a difference going from D1 to D2, but like you said, you can't get caught up in that. My advice for transfers, don't bring it with you. No matter who you were, D1, D2, whatever level you were at, you're somewhere new now. Don't think you're the big man on campus and get embarrassed in camp because you didn't think NAIA was really like that.
Piggyback off of that is like we said earlier about the playbooks, like take time to learn the system, because like you can't just go in, whether you transfer from another NAI school or if you transfer in from a D1 school, like you can't just go in and be like, oh, I was at a D1, so I'm automatically going to play. Like NAI, they have dogs at the NAI level. So if they've got a guy that's been in the system or even an incoming freshman who knows what he's doing, like they're not just going to put you out there over that person just because you were D1 or D2, like a higher level player. Like if you don't know what you're doing, you're not getting on the field. So really take the time of camp to learn the plays, learn the system, and apply it to the practices in camp to show, like, if you think you're that guy, learn the system and then go out on the field and show you're that guy.
Yeah. So for me, I transferred twice. I went from NAI to NAI, and then this recent semester I went from Madonna to D2 in Oklahoma, and then came back to Madonna. So I'll just say, kind of like what Andrew said, just love where you at. You got to be humble. For me, when I went to the D2, I mean, like y'all said, it's a little difference in the facilities and everything. You know, especially being at Madonna's a startup, I had the experience of going to that D2 and seeing what it's like to have different facilities as far as a brand new field, brand new turf, upgraded weight room. So it's like just to see those things, just me coming back, it was just about just being back where I love being at. Oklahoma wasn't bad for me. It was a nice learning experience. I had some great coaches, but it just wasn't the same for me. As far as I went there, I didn't bring any baggage with me. I went with a fresh mindset, like I was a freshman all over again, and just being humble and focusing on perfecting my craft all over again. But it's like I said, for me, it just wasn't the same. Um, I've been at Madonna for 3, 4 years after I transferred here, and just building everything from scratch and just being there with your brothers and with the people that you watch grow on the field and off the field, it's nothing like that feeling. So, like I said, when you go to transfer, like take that mindset of being like a freshman all over again. Like, yeah, you might go from a big school to like an NAI and small, and you feel like it's going to be smaller, or it's going to be not as competitive as your D1 or anything was. But like Jason said, there's some dogs in the NAI that are very overlooked. So just go with that mindset of just coming to compete every day and just making your teammates better.
What is some advice you would give a freshman or a transfer about coming into camp and all of the outside things? There's other teams that are coming early to have their own camp too. So what advice do you have about, the outside things of camp, girls, anything like that.
Leave them alone. Leave them alone.
I'm gonna tell my freshmen, find the old head in the room. There's always a guy who's been there. He's navigated where you're at. I was blessed when I transferred in. There was a fifth year senior quarterback, so I could see how the lay of the land was, figure it out because those guys have done it and they've been successful. If somebody's been in a program for 3 to 5 years, they know the ins and outs. They know who to stay away from, and you just gotta trust your teammates and find that old head. And you'll know who it is as soon as you walk into the room. There's gonna be the dude that's sit back. I've been here before, relaxed. He's ready to work. That's really what it came down to for me.
I really say the same thing because when I first got to KW in the spring, when I first transferred in, like my second day on campus, I was out on the field and one of our senior captains, he comes on the field and like we introduced ourselves and like 2 minutes after meeting each other, we were in the weight room working out and like just building a bond with him from there. And being in with one of the older guys that quick, I was able to see like, just doing the things he was doing, hanging out with him all the time. Like he really showed me like, this is how we run things here. And like, these are the things that you need to stay away from. These are the groups of people you need to stay away from. Even around town, like you said, the outside things, around town, like these are the places you need to stay away from. Like he really guided me and put me on the right path to how, how to conduct myself there.
Uh, I'll say, basically, when you in high school, it's like, football is sports is sports, and you just playing sometimes for yourself, but you also playing for that team. But when you get to college, it's like when you wear these emblems and all this, it's kind of like a brand. So like you're wearing your school, you gotta wear it with pride. So you can't go places and can't be disrespectful. You can't use certain languages you might use back home with your friends. So just remember that you're not just representing yourself anymore to get to that next level. You represent your team as well. So like they said, finding that old head in the room and just kind of hanging around them, finding those people that been around, just understanding everything. The outdoor and the extracurricular activities, they're gonna be there when the football season over and everything, but still keep it to a limit because at the end of the day, it can't help you, it can't hurt your team from things like drinking, smoking, fighting, all those things should be avoided because, like I said, you represent not just yourself anymore. You represent your family, your school, your teammates, your coaches. So you're a representation of them. What they're teaching you is so when you out there acting in certain type of ways, people are like, oh, their coaches allow that, so it's gonna hurt the football team. And everybody know when something bad happens, it's always the football team. So you want to stay away from that narrative. You want to stay away from that perspective of everybody and just be there for everybody and just help everybody understand that you support them so they can be there to support you as well.
Before we get out of here, the last thing that I want to say is surround yourself with good people and don't lose your career and education for one moment.